Hey guys, welcome to this course on Jenkins tutorial for beginners. In this first video, I'm going to give you a brief introduction about Jenkins. So let's get started. So first of all, what is Jenkins? So Jenkins is an open source automation server written in Java. One can also say that Jenkins is a CI server, where CI stands for continuous integration. And what is CI, we are going to see in details in the next slide. Now, what Jenkins does. So Jenkins is used to detect the changes, whatever you commit using your version control system such as Subversion or Git or any other versioning system, and it performs some tasks on your code when it detects some changes in your code. So what tasks Jenkins can perform repeatedly? So Jenkins can perform, for example, if you have a code, it can build your code, it can test your code, it can even deploy your code, and even package or integrate your code whenever it detects some changes in your version control system or in your code. Now let's talk about some of the history behind the Jenkins. So Jenkins is a fork of original Hudson project, and it was under development since 2005. Now Hudson was the first release by a developer called Kosuke Kawaguchi of Sun Microsystem, and in 2010 Oracle bought Sun Microsystem. Due to this, some naming dispute occurred and Hudson was renamed to Jenkins. Now Oracle continued the development of Hudson as a branch of the original, and the Jenkins became the fork of Hudson. Now you can find more about Jenkins on jenkins-ci.org, but nowadays this website is transferred to a website called jenkins.io. So if you enter this URL on your browser, it will be redirected to jenkins.io. Now before diving deep into Jenkins, we need to understand what is CI or continuous integration. So the basic concept of CI is a CI server continuously integrates newly checked in code into a build that we have already discussed. So Jenkins detects those changes using the version control system and performs some tasks on them. For example, building or testing or integration test or deploying those builds and so on. So you can see in the second step of continuous integration, I have written it runs unit tests and rejects the build if they fail. So a continuous integration system detects and runs the unit test, and it detects the failure, and if a failure occurs during the unit test or integration tests or any kind of test, it's going to reject that build and it's going to send the information to the developer or the maintainer of that code. Now for example, your unit test or whatever test or whatever build you are making is successful, then a continuous integration system is going to deploy your build to other servers. So continuous integration is also referred as build automation. So you may ask, what does this really mean? So at regular interval or regular frequency, ideally every commit you do in your version control system, your continuous integration system is going to integrate your system. That means all changes up until that point are combined into that project. It's going to build your code, so the code is compiled into a executable or a package. It's going to test your code, so you can automate your test and you can write your test suite, which is going to be run by your continuous integration system. And if all the previous steps are successful, your code will be deployed. That means it will be loaded onto a system where the developer can interact with it. So now let's talk about some of the benefits or the advantages of a CI system. So CI system enables us in immediate bug detection. So bug will be detected if some test fails or your build fails, and then the CI system is going to deploy your code if your test and your build passes. So at any given point you have a deployable system. Now next is you have the record of evaluation of your project. So for example, how many times your build succeeded or your test succeeded, and at what change or at what point your build failed or your unit test failed. It's going to get the record of everything, so you can see it later, and you can just view the quality of your code. Now the next benefit of a CI system is it's going to detect the system development problem at very early stage. So because you can run Jenkins repeatedly, for example, a developer checks in his code using Git or Subversion or any versioning system, it's going to run every job which you have made. For example, for building your code or your integration test or your unit test or any other test is going to run immediately, and if anything fails, you can even get the report of that using an email, or it will generate some kind of message to your server, so everybody will know some error has occurred during the build or the test of your code, so everybody will be able to take the action at the earliest. As a result, you have the reduced risks of cost, schedule and budget. Okay, so when you detect the problem earlier, obviously you are going to save on cost and your time and your budget. And the last but not the least is the measurable and visible code quality. So using a Jenkins or any other CI system, you will be able to visibly see the code quality of your project. Now let's see, using some picture, how does it all happens. So you can see here are your developers which are going to develop some code, and they are going to commit their code into the code repositories such as Mercurial or Git or Subversion, and this commit of changes of code will be automatically detected by Jenkins. So whenever a developer commits his code, is going to automatically be detected by the Jenkins. And what Jenkins will do is going to run some test, whatever test you have created to run on Jenkins. For example, the unit test or integration test or system test or any other kind of test is going to just run those tests and give you the test results. And if the build is successful and tests are successful, it's going to just transfer your executable file into some artifact repository, or it's going to deploy your software onto some other server, for example on some cloud server where you want to use it. So here the code is committed, and then at a regular interval the Jenkins tests the repository, and then it runs the test on those codes using your repository, and if everything is successful, it's going to create the executable, and then it will save those executable in your artifact repository, or it will deploy your code onto some other server. So now let's talk about why Jenkins and not any other CI system. There are many other CI systems available, but why Jenkins? So in Jenkins, you can create plugins. So these plugins are very modular, and Jenkins plugin extensively makes Jenkins to adopt to many systems. So you can install Jenkins on many systems, for example Linux or Windows or Mac operating system or any other system, and its plugin system is really modular, so you can install whatever plugin you want to support that kind of build or that kind of functionality, whatever you want. Now the second is Jenkins provide everything for a robust continuous integration system, which helps a lot for team that practice agile. Now, agile is software development techniques which are used widely across many companies and many teams in order to coordinate their work. So this is completely another topic, agile methodology. But if you are a software developer, you may know what agile is. The next is Jenkins continuously provides access to the working copies of the software which supports the agile principle once again. So if your team is working in an agile environment such as sprints, or you have scrums, or any other agile methodology, then Jenkins will fit perfectly in your system. The next is Jenkins is released under MIT license, so it's an open source CI system. That means you can use it freely. The next is there is a large support of community and thorough documentation. So whatever you need to know about Jenkins, most probably it will be answered by the support community, or you will find it in the documentation of Jenkins. And the last point is, as I already stated, that it's really easy to write a plugin in Jenkins. And if you write a plugin in Jenkins, it can be used by other community members or everyone who will use Jenkins. That makes Jenkins really powerful in a way that community members creates those plugins and they can be used by everybody who wants to use them. And the last point I want to add here is, if anything goes wrong, you can fix it. So it's so modular, Jenkins is so modular that you can fix your problem by yourself. So what Jenkins can do? Jenkins can generate reports. It can integrate with many different version control systems. It can push to various artifact repositories. It can deploy directly to your production or test environment. It will notify the stakeholders of the build status using email or any other messaging system, and many more. So this is the brief introduction about Jenkins, and in the next video we will see how we can install Jenkins on different operating systems, and then we will go further. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please rate, comment, subscribe, and bye for now.